And since then, it says most people have returned to Morocco voluntarily. And just a reminder of where this is.
Spain says most people have returned to Morocco voluntarily. That was the official line, the crisis effectively over. But the paperwork already knew.
And just to be clear, you've described this robust response and also how people are really very hungry and thirsty. They're not being given food and water.
Picture a beach at dawn, the tide pulling out, leaving behind not shells but exhausted bodies stretched across the sand. This is the visual the official statements erased. Correspondents on the ground asked a simple question. They're not being given food and water. The answer came back flat, undeniable no, they have not been given food and water. No humanitarian organizations, no state institutions, just heat above 30 degrees Celsius and the slow, quiet machinery of pressure. The paperwork already knew.
Well, it's still a tense situation. It is better than it was yesterday, but I wouldn't call it under control as some authority claim. I've still seen clashes between police, military and migrants, also between locals and some migrants this morning. And of course, more than 60,000 people came. So even if it's true that 80–90% have left, we are still talking about thousands of people in this small city that are still on the street.
Spain deployed its military. But a military deployed not to repel an invasion, but to manage a humanitarian collapse looks different up close. The report from Ceuta described it plainly: a tense situation, better than yesterday but not under control. Whatever the authorities claim, clashes between police, military and migrants. Thousands sleeping on the streets, on the beach, complaining of no food, no water for days. The gap between the official narrative and the ground truth had become a chasm.
It is this situation here at the moment that I've described before, the clashes, the frequent clashes between authorities and migrants, because not everybody is willing to go back voluntarily. Of course, a lot of people have gone back. And
then came the term that reframes the entire operation: robust response. The authorities, facing a smaller group unwilling to return, reacted increasingly robust. They pushed people away from the beaches, away from overwhelmed reception centers, toward the border, toward Morocco. The word voluntary began to curdle under the weight of its own contradiction.
I would say that not everybody is going back voluntarily. The majority does, because they are desperate, but as I mentioned before, there are some that do not want to.
The question was put directly: why did these people go back? The answer dismantled the official story in real time. Not everybody is going back voluntarily. The majority does because they are desperate. But some do not want to go back. And now the authorities are pushing harder and harder. Desperation, not consent. Exhaustion, not choice. The distinction is not semantic, it is the entire story.
Some very robust methods, I would say, to make them go towards the border, and let's say they definitely put a lot of pressure on them so that they can.
The robust methods took shape. They definitely put a lot of pressure on them so that they go the last steps across the border into Moroccan territory. A phrase designed to obscure the last steps, when what it really describes is a person who held out for days without food, without water, finally breaking under the weight of organized state pressure. Nobody asked, nobody answered.
So food, I have 4 days. I don't want food, nothing. Just drink the water and nada food. I want just food and but Centro is mad.
And you don't want to go back to. You don't want to go back.
Morocco because I don't have nothing in Morocco.
And then, a voice cuts through the bureaucratic language. A young man, 4 days without food. I want just food. Nada food. Nada? You don't want to go back to Morocco? I don't have nothing in Morocco. Why I want to go? This is the human cost of a policy dressed in the language of order. Not a migrant, not a statistic. A man who has not eaten.
And Jan Philip, as I understand too, dozens of people died in the attempt. As I understand, Jan Philip is just being interrupted there by some people. That's fine, Jan Philip, not a problem. I was just asking you about the dozens of people who died in the attempt to cross over. Can you tell us how these people died exactly?
Most of the people died because they didn't have any strength left, and they were not.
But the full weight of the catastrophe is measured in those who did not make it to the beach at all. Dozens of people died in the attempt. Most of them died because they didn't have any strength left and they were not good swimmers. They died in the water. The Mediterranean, that ancient corridor of human movement, became a grave for people who ran out of strength before they ran out of hope. Nobody asked. Nobody answered.
We don't have yet a lot of information about these dozens of people that have died, but I can tell you I've seen a lot of extremely exhausted people here, and also wounded people, an overwhelmed health system. It's also, of course, the health system here has very limited resources to treat wounded people or completely exhausted people, but you can still hear basically every 5 minutes the sirens of ambulances.
The health system, already threadbare, buckled. Wounded people, completely exhausted people, ambulances screaming every 5 minutes. A small territory absorbing the equivalent of 70% of its population overnight. The systems designed to protect human dignity simply dissolved under the sheer mathematics of the surge.
A lot of fear. Most people did not want to come out of their houses yesterday, and most people still stay inside today. And also all the shops have been closed. It was very difficult even for us to get just a few small bottles of water. I spoke to one lady at a petrol station because I thought at least maybe at a petrol station we could maybe still get some water and some snacks. But this lady said she also had to close the shop of the petrol station because she has been overwhelmed.
But what about those who live in Ceuta permanently? Fear and anger, a mix. Most people did not want to come out of their houses. Shops closed. A woman at a petrol station, the last place you might find water, shut her doors. She called her boss and told him she would not open anymore, not because of violence. The correspondent stressed no serious crimes had been committed, but because of fear of what might happen. Perception had become its own reality.
I think the theory that it has a lot to do with the recent ruling of the Supreme Court, it's a major factor. I've spoken to a lot of migrants, and they said that this news has spread very quickly on social media, also by word of mouth. So just to summarize basically what the Supreme Court said, the Supreme Court said that if people enter the territory by water, swimming, no, as they call it in Spanish, deploraciones calientes, no direct pushbacks are legal.
So what triggered this? The answer sits in a courtroom, not a border fence. A recent ruling from the Spanish Supreme Court. The court declared that if people enter the territory by water, swimming, no direct pushbacks are legal. Their cases must be processed in Ceuta. This legal nuance spread faster than any border patrol, racing through social media, amplified by smuggling networks. A judicial decision intended to protect rights became the signal that pulled 60,000 people toward a single point on the map.
In 2021 there was a very tense situation between Spain and Morocco for political reasons. This was definitely when Morocco also used the migrants kind of as a tool to put pressure on Spain. This time around the diplomatic relations are much better. I wouldn't rule this possibility out completely. That it has.
But the parallel narrative runs deeper. There is a theory, not implausible, that Morocco used the migrants as a tool to put pressure on Spain. Diplomatic relations are better now than during the 2021 crisis, but Spain has also improved ties with Algeria, Morocco's biggest rival. The subtext is unmistakable. Morocco sometimes wants to show how much Spain and Europe depend on their border control. Human beings as leverage in a geopolitical chess match. Nobody asked. Nobody answered.
They did not do the job as let's say robust as they could have on the Moroccan side. But I think still the main reason is internal here in Spain, and this is this Supreme Court ruling.
Yeah.
There is also a more mundane layer to the failure. Border guards on the Moroccan side. It was August, many were on vacation. The gatekeepers of a continental migration pressure point were understaffed because of summer leave. A Supreme Court ruling met a holiday schedule, and the result was a humanitarian crisis that no one predicted and everyone now claims was inevitable.
Nobody really knows what happens next. I think there has a heated political debate has started here in Spain. Prime Minister Sanchez from the Socialists, he has been for a long time under attack because critics say that he has too much of a laissez-faire approach regarding migration. Hundred thousands of irregular migrants are in the process of being legalized in Spain, so critics say this is kind of a pull factor. This is something that is attracting more people to come to Spain, so there is a very, very heated political debate between the conservatives.
And now, the political reckoning begins. A heated debate has erupted in Spain. Prime Minister Sanchez faces attacks from critics who call his approach a pull factor. 100,000 irregular migrants are in the process of being legalized. The conservatives, the socialists, the far right, all seizing the moment for their own political goals. While on the beaches of Ceuta, the question remains simpler and more urgent: what happens to the person who is still hungry, still thirsty, and still waiting for someone to see them as more than a policy problem?
The humanitarian situation here on the ground, I think it's very difficult to predict the coming days. There will be probably more people returning to the Moroccan side, but I think that we will still see authorities struggling with the situation in the coming days.
Nobody really knows what happens next. More people will likely return to the Moroccan side. Authorities will continue to struggle in the coming days. But that prediction, the continued struggle, is an admission that the crisis is not over. It has simply moved out of frame. The paperwork already knew.
Thanks a lot for that, Jan-Philipp. We've been speaking to DW's Jan-Philipp Scholz in Ceuta. Thank you so much for that.
Hello, my friend.
We'd love to hear from you now and your thoughts on what's been happening in Ceuta and the response both by the authorities there as well as the wider political fallout, which we are covering in other videos on our.
You can read the full Spanish Supreme Court ruling on pushbacks for yourself. It's publicly available in the court's official database. After you read it, answer this in the comments: did the court's decision protect rights, or did it create a legal signal that unintentionally pulled tens of thousands into a humanitarian catastrophe? We'll be reading your responses in the next video.